I have here in my hands the pre-production copy of Riot at the Round Table, a card game coming soon to Kickstarter. Before we move any further, I want to point out that this video is going to be a little different because as soon as we got this game in the mail, the lockdown began. So disclaimer is as follows. We haven't actually played this game in real life, so my thoughts are based off of my experience on Tabletop Sim and talking to Quirky Quint, who was able to get a copy of the game and play it in real life. Okay, so with that out of the way, Riot at the Round Table is a card game derived from the Russian card game Durak. And in Riot, players will race to see who can get 3 crowns first to win the game, as they take turns attacking and defending each other by playing cards from their hands. To get crowns, you'll want to be the first player to empty your hand when the central deck runs out. Or you can trade in these square arsenal cards to get crowns. Okay, component overview time. Daniel's not here, gonna do it by hand. Got the rulebook, wooden die, defense token, cannon cards, clover cards, double-sided crown and scepter cards, double-sided reference card, standard deck of cards, and the 3 reroll cards. Summary, rulebook, wooden pieces, cannon clover cards, crown scepters, reference cards, playing cards, reroll cards. So the gameplay looks like this. On each round, one person is the defender and everyone else is the attacker. The initial attacker takes a card from their hand and plays it in front of the defender. Anyone else can add in a card of the same number. Then the defender has one of 3 options. They can pass the attack on by playing the same number, forfeit and take the attack cards into their hand, or start defending by playing a card of the same suit but higher value. Okay, so the defending part is where the real-time element starts to come in. Once the defender puts down a defense card, other players, in real time, can start throwing down attack cards that match any of the values played, whether or not these previous cards were attackers or defenders. When playing cards, players need to take into account the trump suit, which is the most powerful suit of the round, that is determined by the die of power, that is rolled at the start of the game. The trump suit can always be played over other suits to beat them. Oh yeah, and the 4 gesture cards are like wild cards that beat any card played against them. If the defender wins by defeating every single card played against them, they get a cannon card, which is like a cool power card that they can play after defending. All of the attacking and defending cards on the table go to the discard, and then the defending token rotates clockwise. Then everyone draws up to 6 cards, and the cycle of attacking and defending continues until the deck runs out. When the deck does run out, the first person to empty their hand successfully wins a crown. And if no one has won yet by getting 3 crowns, you redeal a new deck. And the winner of the last round is a new ruler of the round and rolls the die of power. One more way to get crowns, which you need to win, you can convert these cannon and clover cards into them. Cannons are weaker than clovers, which are weaker than scepters, which are weaker than crowns. Gameplay wise, these can do anything from the wizard changing the color of the die, to Devil's Deck forcing another player to take the entire discard into their hand. Okay, now that you have a general idea of how the game works, let's jump into optimism we have about the game. The first thing that immediately gripped our attention about this game is that it's a real-time card game, which by definition leads to some pretty interesting premises. It'll be immediately apparent while playing that there's little to no downtime. You have to think really quickly about playing your attack card, or else someone else might take up that attack slot. You have a split second to wait and see if anyone else will attack the defender to force him to pick up the stack, or you can commit into playing your strong cards on him so the game doesn't end. Let's talk about other cool elements of gameplay, like the knowledge you have of other people's hands. Since when you lose a round, you immediately take all the cards that were played on you into your hand is now partially made up of cards that everyone has known about. So when late game rolls around and everyone is trying to get rid of their hands, this knowledge really starts to rack your brain as you try to remember who has all those cards of a certain suit, and how you should maybe change the trump color to another color. And changing the trump color was well done. You can hoard wizard cards to give yourself more agency on the trump suit, but remember, you can only play them after defending, so you don't always have full control of the die. And if you don't feel like changing the trump suit with your wizard cards, you can trade them in at any time to the stronger clover arsenal cards. Speaking on components, the quality of the cards is pretty impressive, and the bright colors don't get one confused about the suit that's being played. Having good quality cards is really important in real-time games, as you don't want to get hindered by confusion on color or cards wearing quickly. Last thing we have to praise are the wooden die and the wooden defense token that are really cool. I've heard that they use a CNC cutter to make these, and the wood is actually indented in both of the pieces. Hopefully, this type of quality will keep up in the main printing. Now let's delve into some concerns we have about the game. Number 1, and this is the biggest roadblock we hit while playtesting this, is the rulebook. The core gameplay of real time gets confusing when the rulebook divides them into an attack phase and then a defense phase. What they're trying to say is that after the initial attack has been defended against, Then everything is up for grabs for attackers to play cards in real time. Yet, this real-time attacking is listed under Defend Continued, which is under the defense phase, which implies that the defender should be the one playing cards. Arsenal card wording needs to be cleaned up with timing, since the rulebook says they can only be played after defending, but Benevolent Blessing, a card that you play while defending, clearly doesn't fall under that category. Plus, they gotta be careful with some wording in absolutes. There's something in the beginning of the rulebook that says the ruler of the round is always right, which gets abused by troll friends. Yeah, I think I just won the game. Wait, what? No, you didn't. Hey, shut up. He's always right. Oh, that's right. Sorry. Of course. So what would help this rulebook a lot is the addition of a FAQ, which is really important in a game with real-time elements where things can get confusing. More things that need to be added in are components. An initial attacker token would help, and we would constantly spawn in one on Tabletop Sim. This could just be a card if they want to save money. The game also needs more player aids, especially because the turn structure is not something that people are used to. The double-sided reference cards that are included need a little bit of work. First, we don't like double-sided here at Shelfside because only one side is visible at a time. And in addition to that, these need to be color-coded. Black and white doesn't really cut it in the heat of gameplay. And the explanation of all the Arsenal cards on one sheet is nice, but it doesn't show what deck they come from. And it's not color-coded. More so, why isn't the subtext here on the Arsenal cards themselves? On the other side of the reference card, the ranking of the face cards may also need an arrow to make the value more clear. And another thing to color code, the dice, where engravings are nice, but we can't really tell what color it is from a glance. And this is a good place to mention that the card rank values in this game are a little wacky, because you can tell that the standard deck in this game, with its 1 to 10 cards and the multiple face cards, that it's clearly derived from the well-known Jack, Queen, King, Ace. So when playing the game, we get confused jumping from a yellow 8 or a green 4 and then to an M red? What's an M red? Oh, M maiden. Oh, maiden is like a queen. Oh, it's like a queen in this game. Okay, got it. And while we're on the topic of the cards, the yellow card numbers are kind of hard to see at a glance, so when playing in real time, it's a little tricky. Let's talk about some concerns we had with balance, starting with the Clover Arsenal cards. We like the cheekiness they're going for in the Devil's deck and Swap and Hood Clover cards, which are supposed to be strong, but forcing another player to take the entire dead pile into their hand late game is really anti-fun when it smashes all their hopes and dreams of winning. Similarly, Swap and Hood can do the same thing as you swap hands with someone else. It's like the take that mechanic, which is fun to play, but it's really not fun to get played against. And when it's played on you, you basically have no chance of winning that round. A question about balance that came up is that the ruler of the round seems a little strong because not everyone will get to be it. Yes, I know we joked about how, the ruler of the round is always right, but the fact that he gets to decide the trump suit if a crown is rolled on the die, as well as attacking first in the beginning, might be a little strong. Okay, so when looking back on all of the games we played of this game, the games are a lot longer than we feel like they should be. The deck starts at 60 cards, and its depletion is really slow, since there's a limit on how many cards can get played around. At most, a handful of attackers will draw 1 to 3 cards at the end of a turn. If defenders regularly lose like what we experienced, they don't draw at all and instead take that turn's cards into their hand. The game is capped at 3 rounds or whoever gets 3 crowns first, so games won't drag forever. But for a real-time card game to last an hour doesn't feel right when other real-time card games like Throw Throw Burrito last 15 minutes. If it were to be the same amount of crowns to win, we think that the deck should at least be made smaller than 60 cards. Last concern, yeah, the theme doesn't really hit the gameplay much here. Yeah, I know the game is like real time and that it might be best to play at a round table because of all the cards going in a circular fashion, but other than those things, I don't really feel anything Arthurian about it. There's the Wizard, which I guess is the fill-in for Merlin. And when you get multiple crowns, then you can ascend the throne and be the king, but wouldn't just 1 crown be good enough? Blech. So before getting into our impression score, we're gonna jump over to Jake at the Quirky Quint channel, who is actually able to play this game over at Arkansas.
Hey guys, it's Jake from the Quirky Quint channel, and I'm here to share my thoughts and opinions on Riot at the Round Table because I got the rare experience of getting to play this game in real life. Everybody agreed that Riot definitely was a playable game. You know, like, it was fun. We could read the rule manual, we could understand it, but it took a while to figure out and understand the strategy. You know, there wasn't anything like screaming at us as soon as we opened it up and started playing. This game is a super passive game. Although it's a Riot and stuff like that, it's not actually super competitive. The main tension in the gameplay we found from playing Riot at the round table was the attempt to try to play as many cards from your hand against the defender before they started playing their defense cards. Because as the defender continues to play defense cards, the cards in their hand get lower, you can play less attack cards against them. Thus, everyone else will have less of an opportunity to get rid of their cards. That's the main tension we found. We were just playing and we were thinking like, okay, what are the cards out here? Okay, he has a 9 and a 1, there's a 9, there's a 1. Oh, okay, I can't play anymore because he already attacked. Now, that's fun for a little bit, but we all agreed that this deck has a whole lot of cards. You have to get all the way through the deck before anyone can earn a crown. I did like the fact that this game is pretty simple. Once you understand the core concepts, you can pretty much teach it to anyone. The rule manual needs a little fleshing out, but it's probably because I got the Kickstarter preview and I'm sure they've worked on a lot of that stuff by now. And the Kickstarter version is gonna be nice and clean, hopefully. But overall, me and my friends had a fairly good time playing this game. It was fun to try and see who could get rid of their hand of cards first, and it was pretty satisfying when you successfully defended an attack. It was fun getting to all gang up on one player, but it wasn't like everybody was targeting one player the entire game because everybody took turns as the defender. I do recommend this game if you want a light, simple game that you can play really fast before a bigger game later that night, kind of as an opener. One thing me and my friends noticed while playing was the cannon and the clover cards rarely ever got used for their special ability because people just wanted to keep hanging on to them in order to trade them in for scepters and crowns. So if you guys do back this game, you might want to experiment, you know, is it more beneficial to actually use the cannon card for its ability? Or is it more beneficial to trade them in to get crowns? When we were playing, we found it was a little bit easier to just trade them in for crowns because you could do that at any point during the game. Whereas if you wanted to use these cards, you'd have to use them at the end of your defense turns. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Riot at the round table. Thank you, Shelfside guys, for including me in this first impressions video. Thank you, IMP Games, for providing this Kickstarter copy. I really appreciate the consideration.
So before we move on with the score, I have to say that we haven't played this game in real life. We've only played it over Tabletop Sim. And some of my ideas were sorted out by talking to Jake over at Quirky Quint. So yeah, disclaimer. I also want to say it was very cool talking to Jessica over at IMP Powered Gaming. Whenever I had questions, I just shoot her an email and she would respond back. Okay, so the first impression score for this game, going off of our Shelfside metric, is going to be a 3 out of 10.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that the gameplay is promising, but the rulebook just holds it back so much. In all of our early playthroughs, we're just confused on how the rulebook is, and since there's no player aids, no FAQ, and no current public resources on how to play the game, it's like a weird puzzle of thinking about the writer's intention that strays from what's actually written down. It's important for games to be accessible here at Shelfside, and with a confusing rulebook, we just imagine most people will lose patience with it. The game also runs too long for what it is, has some imbalance with the Clover arsenal cards, and clarity of information while playing is not the best. If the gameplay was shorter, the rulebook cleaned up, some additional player aids were added, and the arsenal cards were balanced, we can see this game going up to possibly above average. While the gameplay doesn't touch on the theme well, it's not a big deal because no one really cares about theme when you're chucking cards in real time. We were naturally curious about Durak, the Russian card game that this game is based off of, and we have to say that Riot at the Round Table is a lot better. Durak feels like that playing card game you might have played called War, where it just kind of plays itself. It feels like an exercise in Soviet soldiers just playing cards to pass the time and forget about being hungry. But Riot at the Round Table has a lot more thought, with the interactive arsenal cards actually being able to change the color of the suit, and of course, there being a winner with the point system. Because in Durak, there's not one winner, but instead one loser. So who is Riot at the Round Table for? Well, those who like playing card games like Big Two or maybe even Uno, this would be right up your alley. There's the familiar card playing to beat cards, stacking up your hand, and then trying to get rid of your hand. Riot at the Round Table will feel familiar, but new with its real-time elements and interactive arsenal cards. Riot at the Round Table is a card game where the rulebook is really holding it back from what could be a fresh game to quickly whip out on a game night. Arsenal card balance and game flow mishaps aside, there is promise in the real-time strategy as you rig your hand for the end and try to constantly deduce what other people have in their hands. And again, this is only a pre-production copy, so this game has a lot of space to grow. That's gonna be it for us here at Shelfside, giving our first impressions of Riot at the Round Table. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe. There you go, said it. All right, bye-bye.